The first time my husband held our son, he cried so hard I thought he might pass out. We were in a private room at St. Mary's in downtown Columbus, the late afternoon sun spilling through the blinds, everything smelling like antiseptic and warm linen. I was exhausted, stitched up, half-drugged, and shaking from adrenaline. But I remember watching Derek take that tiny bundle from the nurse like it was happening in slow motion. His hands were trembling, his eyes were red. He kept whispering, "That's my boy. That's my boy." And then he looked at me. "Emily," he said, voice breaking, "we did it." We'd been trying for almost 3 years. 3 years of negative pregnancy tests lining the bathroom trash can. 3 years of timed ovulation apps and doctor visits and blood work and awkward fertility consultations where they talk about your sex life like it's a science experiment. There were months I cried in the shower so he wouldn't hear me. Months he slept facing the wall because he felt like his body was failing us. So when I finally got pregnant, it felt like we'd won a war. Derek was over the moon from day one. He went to every appointment, even the boring ones. He downloaded dad apps, he read books, he painted the nursery himself, this soft gray-blue color he insisted would grow with him. He'd kneel down every night and talk to my stomach like the baby could already understand him. I never doubted him, not once. That's what makes everything after feel like I stepped into someone else's life. Our son, Noah, was born at 7:42 p.m., 8 pounds, 2 ounces, healthy lungs, perfect fingers, thick dark hair. The nurses joked he looked like a little linebacker. Derek didn't leave his side. He followed the bassinet when they wheeled him out for routine checks like a bodyguard. The first night home was chaos. We barely slept. I cried because breastfeeding hurt more than I expected. Derek cried because he felt useless. We laughed at 3 a.m. over cold pizza and the fact that we had no idea what we were doing. For the first few weeks, we were just tired. That bone-deep, delirious kind of tired where days blur together. Visitors came. My mom stayed for a week. Derek's sister brought casseroles. Everyone said Noah had my eyes but Derek's chin. I didn't see it at first. But around the 6-week mark, something started to itch in the back of my brain. Noah's eyes were blue. Not gray-blue newborn blue. Bright, clear blue. Mine are brown. Derek's are brown. Dark brown. I mentioned it casually one afternoon while Derek was burping him in the living room. "Maybe he'll change," I said. "Newborn eyes do that, right?" Derek shrugged. "Yeah, probably." But he didn't look convinced. A week later, at his 2-month checkup, the pediatrician made an offhand comment. "Wow," she said, flipping through the chart. "Blue eyes, that's interesting." I laughed. "Is it?" "Well," she said, smiling lightly, "genetics are funny, but with 2 brown-eyed parents, it's less common." Less common. That phrase lodged in my chest. In the car ride home, Derek was quiet, too quiet. He stared straight ahead, hands tight on the steering wheel. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said quickly, "just tired." But that night, he didn't kneel by the crib like he used to. He stood at the doorway instead. By month 3, the distance between us was palpable. Not dramatic, not explosive, just subtle shifts. He stopped talking to Noah the same way. He didn't do skin-to-skin anymore. When people commented on the blue eyes, he'd force a smile that never reached his own. One night, after we put Noah down, I found Derek sitting alone at the kitchen table, laptop open. "What are you doing?" I asked. He closed it too fast. "Nothing." I walked around and opened it before he could stop me. The screen was filled with search results. Can 2 brown-eyed parents have a blue-eyed baby? My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. "Derek," I whispered. He stood up so suddenly his chair scraped across the tile. "Just answer me something," he said, voice tight. "Is there anything you need to tell me?" The question didn't register at first. "Tell you what?" His eyes were wild, hurt, angry, terrified. "About Noah." It was like he'd slapped me. "Are you serious?" "I just want the truth," he said, and there was something broken in his voice I'd never heard before. "Please, just tell me." "There is nothing to tell," I said, shaking now. "I have never cheated on you, not once. How could you even think that?" He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. I don't know what to think. It's just, genetically, it doesn't make sense." "It's rare, not impossible," I snapped. "The doctor said that." "She said less common." "Are you accusing me?" My voice cracked on the last word. He didn't answer, and that silence was louder than any accusation. That night, we slept on opposite sides of the bed. After that, it got worse. He didn't outright accuse me again, but the suspicion was there. I felt it every time he looked at Noah too long, every time someone commented on his coloring, every time Derek's mom made little jokes like, "Well, where did those eyes come from?" At Thanksgiving, his cousin, half drunk, said, "Mailman must have had some strong genes." Everyone laughed. Derek didn't. I went to the bathroom and locked the door and cried so hard my chest hurt. When I came out, Derek wouldn't look at me. The real breaking point came when Noah was almost 4 months old. I woke up one night and Derek wasn't in bed. I found him in the nursery, standing over the crib, just staring. "You're going to wake him," I whispered. He didn't move. "Derek," he finally spoke, but his voice was hollow. "I don't feel connected to him." It felt like someone reached inside my body and twisted. "What are you saying?" "I'm trying," he said. "I am. But every time I look at him, I hear that question in my head." "What question?" "Is he mine?" The room went completely still. "You don't get to do this," I said, barely holding it together. "You don't get to pull away from your son because of some high school biology crap." He looked at me then, and I saw something ugly in his eyes. "What if it's not biology?" he asked quietly. That was the first time he actually said it. I slapped him. I don't even remember deciding to. My hand just moved. The sound cracked through the nursery. Noah stirred in his sleep. Derek stepped back like I had burned him. "I have been faithful to you for 10 years, I said, shaking violently. 10 years, through infertility, through your job loss, through everything, and you think I would risk all of that?" "I don't know what to think," he yelled back, then immediately lowered his voice. "I don't know." 2 days later, he brought up a paternity test. He framed it like it was for peace of mind, like it would clear the air. I told him if he did that, there would be no clearing anything. There would be damage that wouldn't heal. We fought for hours, the kind of fight where you say things you can't take back. He didn't do the test, but he also didn't let it go. And then 6 months after Noah was born, the hospital called. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was folding laundry in the living room. Noah was on his playmat, chewing on a giraffe toy. The number was unfamiliar. "Hi, is this Emily Carter?" the woman asked. "Yes, this is Amanda from St. Mary's Hospital."
"I'm calling regarding your son's birth record." My heart skipped. "Is something wrong?" There was a pause, paper shuffling. "We've recently conducted an internal review and discovered a potential labeling error in the newborn unit on the evening of March 14th. March 14th, the night Noah was born. I sat down slowly. "What kind of error?" Another pause, longer this time. "There's a possibility that 2 infants may have been temporarily misidentified before discharge." The room started spinning. "I don't understand," I said. "Are you saying we need you and your husband to come in for confirmatory testing as soon as possible?" I looked over at Noah, at his bright blue eyes, at the tiny dimple on his left cheek. And for the first time since he was born, a terrifying thought crept into my mind. What if Derek was right? What if the baby I carried for 9 months wasn't biologically ours at all? I told Derek about the call in the kitchen, and I'll never forget how he reacted. He froze, his coffee cup slipping from his hand, dark liquid staining the beige carpet. He didn't speak at first, just stared at me with those brown eyes that now looked tired and sharp in the mid-morning light. His jaw clenched, and I swear I could see him weighing whether to scream or run. Finally, he whispered, "You're kidding." "I wish I was," I said. "They want us to come in for testing. They said there might have been a mix-up." Derek sank into the chair, running both hands through his hair. He didn't say anything for a long time, just sat there breathing like he was trying to slow down a panic that was starting to overtake him. Noah babbled on the playmat, oblivious to the tension, but every coo felt like it was mocking the room. I could see Derek's mind spinning, replaying every tiny moment, every blue-eyed smirk, every quiet suspicion he'd held since the first month. I'd never seen him look so broken. Do we tell anyone?" he asked finally, his voice barely audible. "I don't know," I admitted. "Do you want to go alone or together?" The words sounded ridiculous even as I said them. Together. How could we even be together right now when the foundation of our marriage felt like it was cracking beneath us? We drove in silence. The streets of Columbus blurred past, suburban houses with perfectly trimmed lawns, people jogging, dogs pulling on leashes, a kid on a skateboard nearly colliding with a parked minivan. Everything felt ordinary, normal. Everything except us. In that car, it was like the world had been reduced to just Derek, Noah, and the possibility that our lives had been flipped upside down by a hospital error. When we got to St. Mary's, the receptionist led us to a conference room with pale yellow walls, a round table, and a single flickering fluorescent light overhead. It felt sterile and claustrophobic. Amanda, the woman who had called me, was there, along with a pediatric nurse I vaguely recognized from Noah's birth. They both had that carefully neutral expression that made me hate them instantly. "Thank you for coming in so quickly," Amanda said. Her voice was calm, but there was a tension under it, like she'd been waiting for this moment for weeks. "We ran an internal review, and we need to do a DNA test to confirm your child's identity. There was a labeling error in the nursery. 2 infants may have been temporarily misidentified before discharge." Derek didn't move. He just stared at the table, hands clenched into fists. Noah was in my arms, unaware of what was about to happen, squirming and trying to grab at my necklace. My chest was tight, every breath shallow. I felt like I was suffocating, and part of me wanted to run, just get out of that room and pretend none of this was happening. But the other part, the part that had loved him, trusted him, fought for him, wouldn't let me. I needed the truth, and deep down, I knew Derek did too. "Do you want to do it now?" Amanda asked. Derek finally looked up. His face was pale, drawn, like he hadn't slept in weeks. "Yeah," he said. Let's get it over with." The nurse led us to a small testing room down the hall. It was even more sterile than the conference room. Bright white walls, a linoleum floor, and the faint smell of disinfectant. They asked us to swab Noah's cheek, then ours. The whole time, Noah screamed, tiny fists flailing, and Derek held him with shaking hands. I whispered soothing words, but my own voice sounded foreign to me. My chest tightened with every minute that ticked by. When the nurse finally took Derek's swab, he exhaled so loudly I thought he might pass out. "I can't believe we're doing this," he muttered. His voice was hollow, broken. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The reality of the situation was like a punch to the stomach that refused to go away. Our whole life, our years together, the sleepless nights, the love we'd built, it was all suddenly suspended in this tiny room, balanced on the results of a DNA test. We left the hospital without speaking. Derek drove home in silence, his hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles were white. Noah was asleep in the back seat, oblivious. I kept glancing at Derek, trying to read him, trying to find any hint of reassurance, any small piece of comfort that this might all end okay. But there was nothing, just tension and fear, and the weight of the unknown pressing down on us. Over the next few days, everything felt unreal. Derek barely touched Noah. He avoided eye contact with me. He didn't say, "I love you," once. I tried to talk to him, tried to bridge the gap that had grown between us, but every attempt was met with a wall of silence, or a look that made my stomach turn. The house felt empty even when it was full of noise. The baby's cries, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock. It was a strange kind of torture, waiting for a call that could either destroy us or heal us. But mostly I felt like we were both suspended, trapped in a liminal space where nothing felt real and everything hurt. And then the call came. Amanda from the hospital. I was in the kitchen, making a bottle for Noah, when my phone rang. Derek was on the couch, staring at the floor, so I answered. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Amanda's voice was calm, clinical, but there was something in her tone that made my heart stop. "Emily, Derek," she said, "we have the results of the DNA test. I want to make sure you're in a private space. Are you alone with your child?" "Yes," I whispered. "Okay, the results confirm that Noah is biologically Derek's son." The words hit me in waves. Relief, shock, confusion. But the relief was instant and visceral. I felt like someone had lifted a weight off my chest that I didn't realize had been crushing me for months. I looked over at Derek, who was sitting frozen on the couch, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. It was like he had been waiting to see the color drain from the room, or maybe from his life, and instead the air felt heavy with disbelief, like we had cheated death. He didn't move for a long time. I wanted to reach out to him, to hug him, to tell him everything was okay, but he didn't respond. Finally, he whispered, almost to himself, "He's mine." "Yes," I said softly, "he's yours." And for a moment, it felt like we could breathe again, but there was no joy. Not yet.
Only a fragile, trembling relief that didn't erase the past months, the suspicion, the distance that had grown between us. We were physically intact, yes, but emotionally broken. And I knew that just because the truth was out didn't mean we could go back to the way things were. Trust isn't restored with a phone call or a piece of paper. Trust is earned, painstakingly, over time. And I had no idea if we could earn it back. The following week was a strange limbo. Derek was quieter than usual, hovering near Noah but not fully present. I could see him watching me with an intensity that was unsettling, like he was analyzing every move, every gesture, every smile. I knew he was trying to process the relief, trying to reconcile the years of doubt with the reality that his son was, in fact, his son.
But it was complicated. Fear and suspicion lingered like a shadow that refused to leave, a reminder of the fragility of our lives. And I couldn't shake the feeling that, despite the DNA results, something fundamental had changed between us. We tried to go about our lives. Walks in the park, diaper changes, late-night feedings. Everything should have felt normal. But it didn't. Derek was different. Distrust, even unfounded, had a way of seeping into every interaction, poisoning the most mundane moments. He would glance at my phone, comment on emails, question passing conversations with friends. And I understood why. He had been blindsided, shaken to his core. But it was exhausting. And while part of me wanted to be patient, wanted to give him space, another part of me was angry, furious at the idea that our lives had been held hostage by this mistake. One evening, about a week after we got the results, I found Derek standing in the nursery again, Noah asleep in the crib. He didn't notice me at first. He was holding a tiny onesie in his hands, staring at it as if it held all the answers to life. I stepped closer, trying not to startle him. "Derek," I said gently. He turned, eyes wide, red-rimmed and exhausted. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. I thought I lost him," he finally said. His voice cracked, raw with emotion. I thought he wasn't mine." "Noah is yours," I said softly. "He's always been yours." He shook his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I know that now," he whispered. "But I can't explain it. For months, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time I held him, every time I looked at him, that doubt ate at me. I hated myself for it. I hated that I couldn't trust you." I reached out and touched his arm. "You were scared," I said. "You didn't know. It's not your fault." He looked at me like he was trying to memorize every detail of my face. "I can't do this," he said, voice trembling. "I can't just forget that it happened. But I don't want to lose him. I don't want to lose us." We stood there for a long time in silence, the only sound the soft ticking of the baby monitor. I wanted to scream, cry, beg. I wanted to feel the relief, the joy, the love I felt when he first held Noah. But it was muted, fragile, overshadowed by months of suspicion and fear. The hospital mix-up was resolved, but nothing about us felt resolved. We had proof, undeniable proof that Noah was ours, but the months of doubt, the whispered questions, the cold glances, they had done something to us that paperwork couldn't fix. We had to start over, and starting over was terrifying. I don't know when it started, that creeping fear that maybe everything could unravel again. Maybe the next twist, the next betrayal was waiting just around the corner. But for now, we had Noah. For now, we had truth, and I clung to that, fragile and trembling, knowing it wasn't enough to erase the past, but maybe it was enough to keep us standing, if only barely. The next few months were a delicate, tense balancing act, like walking on a tightrope over a canyon of suspicion. Every interaction between Derek and me was measured, calculated, even though neither of us admitted it aloud. He tried to be present with Noah again, but I could see him second-guessing himself in every little thing. Changing diapers, feeding, burping. He'd hesitate, check the baby's eyes, the color of his hair, the dimple in his cheek, like he was confirming some unspoken truth over and over, afraid that one slip would prove all the fears of the past were real. I tried not to push, tried to be patient, but it was exhausting. The house felt smaller, suffocating. Every time Derek walked past me, I felt a tension that didn't exist before the hospital call. He avoided eye contact when he was deep in thought, and sometimes he would flinch at my touch, as though my hands could reveal secrets I didn't know I was hiding. And God, I hated it. Hated that our home, once filled with laughter and the tiny, sticky chaos of early parenthood, now felt like a cage of unspoken accusations. One night, Derek and I got into another fight. Noah was asleep in the crib, soft snores echoing through the room. I was folding laundry, trying to distract myself, and Derek was pacing the living room with a bottle in his hand. He was angry, but not at me directly, at the situation, at himself, at this twisted sense of betrayal that had poisoned months of our marriage. "Why can't it just go back to normal?" he snapped. "Because it's not normal," I shouted back, voice shaking. "You've been doubting me for months, Derek, months, and now we have proof, and it's like you still can't let it go." He threw the bottle onto the couch, milk sloshing over the edges.
Do you think it's that simple? Just let it go? I've seen his eyes, Emily. I've seen him, and I've wondered if he's mine every single day. You don't understand what that does to a man. I crossed my arms, trembling. You don't get to just push me away because you were scared, because of some impossible mistake the hospital made. He laughed bitterly, a hollow, broken sound. Impossible mistake? This isn't just about the hospital. It's about trust. It's about life, Emily. Everything we've built, everything I thought I knew, it's all been upended. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I can trust anything. I stared at him, speechless. He was trembling, tears threatening to fall, but his face was hard, unyielding. And in that moment, I realized how much this had changed him, how much it had changed us. The Derek who had painted the nursery, the Derek who had held Noah like a life preserver in that hospital room, that Derek was still in there somewhere. But he was buried under months of fear and suspicion that neither of us could erase with a single phone call or DNA test. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. I stayed in the nursery with Noah, watching his tiny chest rise and fall, feeling the weight of everything between Derek and me like a physical thing pressing down on my chest. He stayed in the living room, staring at the wall, muttering to himself. It was a silence filled with guilt, regret, and unsaid apologies, and I didn't know if it was worse than screaming, or just another layer of torture we'd inflicted on ourselves. By the time Noah was 6 months old, the distance between Derek and me had grown so wide it was almost impossible to bridge. He was present in body, but absent in spirit. He'd feed Noah, change him, take him for walks, but it was mechanical, like he was going through the motions.
There was no warmth, no connection, no laughter. And the more I tried to reach him, the more he recoiled, as though my attempts to comfort him reminded him of the months of doubt, the months of fear, the months where he wondered if our son was really his. I started noticing the subtle signs first. Texts left open on his phone, late nights at work that didn't match his schedule, subtle changes in demeanor that made my stomach twist. I wanted to believe it was paranoia, that I was just imagining things because I was still raw from everything that had happened. But the feeling never left. I started checking things, little things at first, bills, receipts, his computer history. Nothing glaring, nothing obvious, just the creeping anxiety that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't over, that there was another layer of betrayal waiting to be uncovered. And then, one Friday night, everything came crashing down. I came home early from work, hoping to catch Derek before he left for a late shift. The house was quiet. Noah was asleep. The lights in the living room were dim. I walked in, expecting to find him there, sitting quietly, maybe watching TV, maybe scrolling on his phone. But the moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. There was a woman on the couch. Not just any woman. Someone I had never met before. Someone Derek knew. Her head was tucked against his chest. His hand was wrapped around her, protective, tender. My heart stopped. My stomach turned over. Everything I had feared, everything I had suspected, came rushing back, raw and unrelenting. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, frozen, watching the scene unfold like it was happening to someone else. Derek looked up, eyes wide, guilty, caught. I saw the moment the world shifted for him, the moment he realized I had seen everything. "Emily," he started, voice trembling. But I couldn't hear him. I couldn't process words. My mind was spinning, 1,000 thoughts colliding at once. Betrayal, rage, hurt, confusion. The hospital mix-up, the months of doubt, the sleepless nights, the fights. They all collided into one unbearable weight pressing down on me. The woman moved, realizing the tension, and left. She didn't speak, didn't apologize, didn't explain, just left, leaving Derek and me alone in the aftermath. And there he was, standing in the middle of our living room, eyes pleading, face pale. He started again. I cut him off, voice sharp, trembling with fury. "How long? What? How long, Derek? How long have you been doing this? While doubting our son, while thinking I might have done something unforgivable. How long?" He faltered, looking like a kid caught stealing candy from a jar. It's complicated. Complicated, I repeated, laughing bitterly. "Do
you have any idea what this feels like? To carry a child for 9 months, to live through infertility, to finally have a son, and then to have the man I trusted more than anyone in the world doubt me, suspect me, and then do this. How is that complicated? He opened his mouth, closed it, stumbled over words, but nothing made sense. I was shaking, my hands balled into fists. I could feel the tears coming, the rage, the heartbreak, and I didn't know if I would ever stop trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, he said finally. I couldn't listen anymore. I turned and left, grabbing my coat, my bag, my keys. I didn't care that it was cold outside, that I had nowhere to go. I needed to escape, to breathe, to get out of the house that had become a prison. I drove without direction, windows down, tears streaming, gasping like I couldn't breathe. Every song on the radio sounded like it was narrating my life, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the suffocating disbelief. And I kept thinking about Noah, asleep in the house we were supposed to call home, and I felt like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. I didn't call anyone, didn't reach out. I didn't even think about where I was going. I just drove. Hours passed, darkness settled in, and I realized I was alone in every sense of the word. And it wasn't just the absence of Derek. It was the absence of the life we had built together. The absence of trust, of security, of certainty. When I finally pulled over at a 24-hour diner, I sat in the car for a long time, trying to calm down, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But it was impossible. My mind was a storm of fear, confusion, rage, and heartbreak. And I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same. The hospital error had started this nightmare, but Derek's choices had turned it into a reality I couldn't escape. I didn't know how to go home. I didn't know how to face him. I didn't know if I wanted to. And as I sat there, staring at the blinking neon sign outside the diner, I realized something terrifying. The life I had imagined, the happy family I had dreamed of for years, was gone, and I didn't know if it was ever coming back. I went home the next morning, not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. Noah was there, our son, the baby I carried, the baby I loved with every ounce of me, sleeping peacefully in his crib, completely unaware of the chaos that had taken over our lives. I watched him for a long time, just breathing, just existing, and it was the only thing that kept me tethered to reality. Because no matter how much Derek had betrayed me, Noah hadn't. Noah was still ours. My heart ached with the bittersweet weight of that truth. Derek didn't approach me at first. He stayed in the living room, hunched over, as if carrying the shame of the world on his shoulders. The house was quiet, thick with tension. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coffee cup I wasn't drinking, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator. I didn't know where to start, didn't know if words could ever repair what had been broken. Finally he spoke, voice low and trembling. "Emily, I messed up. I can't even begin to explain how sorry I am." I laughed bitterly. "Sorry? Do you even hear yourself? You cheated. After everything. After months of suspicion. After the hospital mix-up. After everything we went through just to have this baby. You did this." "I know," he yelled, the sound echoing off the walls. I know I did, and I hate myself for it. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't processing anything. I don't know what I needed. I wasn't thinking about you. I wasn't thinking about Noah. I made a mistake. A terrible, horrible, unforgivable mistake. I stared at him, the words burning through me, the anger and hurt coiling like a snake around my chest. "Do you even understand what you've done? Do you know what it feels like to live in fear? To wake up every day wondering if the person you trust most in the world is capable of destroying everything you've built?" He nodded, tears running down his face. I know I've hurt you, Emily, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if it's fixable." We didn't speak for a long time after that.
Derek tried, really tried to be the father I knew he could be. He held Noah, fed him, sang to him, even laughed with him. But there was a tension, a quiet shadow that hung over every interaction, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had taken place, and I couldn't help but notice it. Every time Derek looked at me, I saw guilt in his eyes, a silent acknowledgement of the pain he had caused. I wanted to forgive him. I wanted to believe that the man I married, the man who had cried in the hospital holding our son, the man who had painted the nursery, the man who had loved me fiercely and completely, was still there. But the trust that had taken years to build was fractured, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. One evening, I found myself standing in the nursery, watching Derek and Noah play on the floor. Noah was laughing, squealing with joy, reaching for his father's face. Derek's eyes were soft, full of love and regret, and for a brief moment, it felt like the Derek I knew was back. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice breaking. "Every day, I'm sorry." I didn't answer. I just watched, feeling a mixture of anger, sadness, and a fragile hope that maybe, somehow, we could get through this. But even as I watched, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. The hospital error had started this nightmare, but Derek's choices had turned it into a reality that would haunt us forever. We tried therapy, couple sessions, anything to rebuild what had been lost. It helped, in small ways, but the scars remained. Every time I looked at Derek, every time I held Noah, I felt the weight of the past pressing down, a constant reminder of how quickly trust can shatter. And yet, despite everything, life went on. Noah grew, laughed, learned to crawl, then walk. Derek and I existed in the same house, as co-parents, as partners, but the intimacy, the effortless connection we once had, was gone. It had been replaced with a careful, measured coexistence, punctuated by moments of love and tenderness that were often overshadowed by the memory of betrayal. I think about that night, the night I came home early, the night I saw Derek with her, and I still feel the burn of it, the raw, jagged edge of heartbreak. I think about the months of doubt before the DNA results, the sleepless nights, the fights, the quiet moments where I felt completely alone in my own marriage. And I know that those experiences have changed me, changed us, in ways that can't be undone. Yet, despite all of it, I still love Derek. I still love Noah. I still cling to the fragments of the family we once imagined, even if they are fragile, even if they are imperfect. And I hold on to the hope that maybe, with time, with effort, with honesty, we can rebuild something real, something stronger, something that acknowledges the mistakes, the pain, the betrayals, but still chooses love. Life after betrayal isn't clean. It isn't tidy. It isn't the fairy tale I once imagined. But it is real. And in the quiet moments when Noah is asleep and Derek sits beside me, we exist together in this fractured, imperfect way. And maybe, just maybe, that is enough. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if our marriage will survive. I don't know if Derek will ever forgive himself, or if I will ever forgive fully. But I do know that Noah is ours, that the truth matters, that love is complicated and messy and painful. And even in the aftermath, even in the shadow of betrayal, we move forward. One day, one breath, one small, fragile step at a time. Sometimes when I watch Derek and Noah together, I see glimpses of the man I married, the man who cried holding our son, who painted the nursery with care, who loved fiercely. And I cling to those glimpses like lifelines, reminders that even after betrayal, even after heartbreak, there can still be moments of beauty, moments where love survives, even if it is wounded, even if it is imperfect, even if it is fragile. We are survivors of our own mistakes, victims of circumstances beyond our control, and witnesses to the fragility of trust. And in this life, that is all we can be, all we can hope for, all we can hold on to. Noah's laughter echoes through the house, and for a moment,
I allow myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything can be okay. Not perfect, not whole, not like it was before, but okay enough. Enough to breathe, enough to love, enough to keep moving forward, even when the wounds are still raw, even when the fear lingers, even when the past refuses to be forgotten. Because this is real life, and real life doesn't wrap neatly in a bow. Real life is messy, painful, and complicated, and sometimes real life is all we have. And if we are lucky, we hold on to the people we love, even when they hurt us, even when we hurt them, and we try again. I hold Noah close, watching him drift to sleep, and I see Derek sitting nearby, watching too. And I know that despite everything, the betrayal, the fear, the doubt, we are still here, still a family, still struggling, still imperfect, still surviving. And somehow, that has to be enough.